My name is Emily Carter, and when I turned 15, my family gave me a birthday I'd never forget because they made sure it would scar. We lived on the outskirts of Boise, Idaho, in a cramped two-story house where every creak carried a secret. My father, Thomas Carter, was a former firefighter, always carrying a chip on his shoulder and no one to impress but his kids. My mother, Linda, stayed silent unless she was backing him up. Then there was my younger sister, Sophie, 2 years my junior, the golden child. If she blinked, the world stopped to applaud. For weeks, I tried not to get my hopes up. My previous birthdays had either been forgotten or twisted into lectures about gratitude, but this time felt different. My father looked me in the eye that week. My mother bought me a green sundress with tiny yellow polka dots, saying it was just in case.
Sophie wassen taunting ml for Orse.
It felt strange, almost too kind. On my birthday morning, my father told me to be ready by 2 p.m. for something unforgettable. I was 15, I wanted to believe them. I wore the green dress, braided my hair with a curling iron that flickered, and imagined we might go somewhere simple, like a diner. Sophie was in the front seat of the SUV, smirking like she knew something I didn't.
My Mutter handelt MLA Black Velvet blindfold.
It's a surprise, she said. Trust us. Like a fool, I climbed in, let them tie the blindfold, and buckled up. For the first 10 minutes, it was fine. My father kept saying, "You'll remember this forever." Sophie giggled. My mother called me stunning. I grinned until my cheeks ached. But the drive grew longer, quieter, too quiet. The road turned rough, from pavement to gravel to something uneven. The SUV stopped. My father's voice was cold, out. Still blindfolded, I stepped onto soft ground, dirt, maybe grass. My sandals sank.
No von guidet me. I stot, weiting.
Then I heard doors slam, the engine rev, and laughter. Tires spun.
I tore of the blindfold.
Nothing. Just me, a crumbling shed in a field of tangled brush, its roof half-caved, door ajar, revealing rusted tools and cobwebs. I spun around as the SUV made a U-turn, windows down. My mother shouted, "Surprise!" Sophie yelled, "Happy shed day, loser!" My father honked 3 times, like it was a game. Then they were gone. No cake, no party, just a shed, a green dress, and their laughter echoing like they'd won something. I froze, thinking it was still part of the plan, that they'd circle back. They didn't. It wasn't a prank or a lesson, it was exactly what it looked like. Want to hear more stories like this? Subscribe and comment with where you're watching from. I didn't cry or scream. I didn't enter the shed. I stood, then turned and walked down an unfamiliar dirt path, sandals off, feet raw on gravel. The sun burned my shoulders. No phone, no bag, they'd held them so I wouldn't lose them.
Ever step grey heavier.
I kept looking back, hoping they'd return. They didn't. The gravel cut my feet, but stopping felt like surrender. No houses, just fields and splintered fences. I passed a rusted sign, a broken bottle, a flattened possum. I didn't cry, crying felt too much like pleading, and I'd already pleaded by dressing up. After what felt like hours, I spotted a mailbox that stood straight. A gravel driveway led to a modest farmhouse with a weathered porch and a pickup truck out front. The truck was old but polished, with work boots by the door, one tipped over. I hesitated, wondering if I looked too deranged to knock. The door opened, and an older man stepped out, gray beard, flannel shirt, cap reading Hanson Acres. He eyed me and said, "Lost or running?" "Both," I replied. He didn't pry, just pointed to a wooden chair on the porch. "Sit before you collapse."
Isat.
He brought a water bottle and an ancient flip phone. I called 911, asking for a ride home. When the dispatcher asked for my address, I hesitated, not because I didn't know it, but because I didn't want to go back. I gave it anyway. The man, Henry Hansen, stayed until the sheriff's car arrived. When the deputy asked what happened, Henry said, "Kids had enough." It was more kindness than I'd known in 15 years. The deputy drove me home in silence, dropping me at the curb.
I valket baref od ab se driveway, clutching the water bottle like a shield. The house was still.
My father was watching a football rerun. My mother was sipping tea in the kitchen like it was nothing. No one looked surprised. My mother said, "Well, you're back. Good." My father didn't look up. "It was a joke," he said. "You overreacted."
Isaid noting.
Sophie sauntered in, phone in hand, smirking.
Guess wo's viral?
She showed me a photo of a lopsided birthday cake with blue icing. "Happy shed day, loser." The caption read, "Epic prank." Likes, comments, laughing emojis.
Event upstairs and lock at my door.
That night, I heard them arguing. About what, I wasn't sure.
My Name came up. My Mutter kallet me overly dramatic.
My father said I loved playing the victim. Sophie laughed, saying I should be thrilled to finally get attention. The next day, I checked my school email on the family laptop. Someone had forwarded Sophie's post to half my class.
Subjekt, Chat Girl Forever.
That was when I first thought about changing my name, not out of shame, but to vanish so they'd never find me. I skipped family dinners, avoiding my name as a punchline. Silence became my only safe language. If I said nothing, they lost interest. So, I stayed quiet, went to my room, did homework, stared at the ceiling, and read books that promised life could be more than this. The school library became my refuge. I grabbed books with titles like Grit, Tactics, or Endurance. One had a section on Navy SEAL training.
I read it 4 times.
I didn't want to be a soldier. I wanted to be untouchable, someone who could face fire without flinching. I copied quotes like they were code.
Von Stuck, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your training.
At school, the shed girl joke spread. Someone bleated at me in the hall. A barn photo was taped to my locker. A kid made a meme of me crying in front of a shed with dramatic music. It went viral for a week, eternity in high school. Teachers did nothing. One said I needed to laugh at myself. Another said, "At least they're not bullying you physically." I stopped speaking in class, stopped wearing bright clothes. The less I gave, the less they took. At home, my mother drowned in tea and denial. My father ignored me unless he needed something cleaned or fetched. One night, I overheard him on the phone with an old firefighting buddy. The guy asked about us. My father said, "Emily's quiet now. Better that way." He laughed. The other guy did too. That hurt worse than the shed. The shed was a moment. That was my life summed up. He didn't want a daughter, just silence in a green dress. I stopped talking to them entirely. No good mornings, no dinner questions. I practiced saying my name flatly, like it wasn't mine. I researched joining the military, not the glamorous stuff, requirements, pay, what happens if you have no family. The internet taught me what they wouldn't. I kept a journal under my mattress, labeled escape routes, skills, pack list. I was 16 but felt 50. One night, Sophie barged into my room, grabbed the journal, and read a page. "God, you're so extra," she said, tossing it back.
No von Kares wat you Donnerstag. She left the door open.
That night, I hid the journal in my backpack and swore 2 things. I'd leave the moment I could, and I'd never let them see me crack. I started jogging before dawn, not for fitness but for control. My alarm buzzed at 4:30 a.m. I'd slip out, run in worn sneakers until the world felt less heavy.
At 18, I met a recruiter, Sergeant Laura Brooks, all business with a crew coot.
When I said I wanted to join military intelligence, she squinted.
Got a took mind.
I nodded. Good. You'll need it. I wasn't after combat. I wanted to understand how people break, how they believe lies when lies feel safer than truth. I knew something about that. Senior year blurred past. No prom, no graduation walk. I signed my enlistment papers at 18 and left 3 weeks later. No send-off, no tears. My mother texted, "Be safe."
My Vater Said noting.
Sophie posted an old photo of us with, "She's gone, lol." I didn't reply.
Basic training broke me down to basics.
No one cared about your past, just if you could finish. My silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. I followed orders, kept my bunk neat, spoke only when it mattered. People noticed, not negatively.
Von Gi kellet me shadow quit.
Another said I had stealth strength. I took it as praise. At Fort Bragg, I joined a small intelligence unit under Captain Maria Torres. She was sharp, no nonsense, her voice calm unless she needed the earth to hear her. On day one, she said, "Carter, you think before you speak. Keep it that way." She taught me to read people, spot cracks in their logic, and push just enough to unravel them. "People don't trust facts," she said. "They trust what soothes their fears." That hit deep. Torres asked one night, "Why are you here, Carter?" I said I wanted to vanish. She replied, "Blending's better than vanishing. Vanishing lets them win." We ran psyops drills, crafted disinformation, practiced interrogations. I wasn't great at physical combat, but I could dissect motives. In a mock interrogation, I asked a prisoner, "Who takes the fall if this fails?" He cracked in 8 minutes.
Torres pullet ml azide.
"Ever turn that on your family?" "Not yet," I said. She grinned. "Make it count." I stopped dreaming of home and started mapping exits, doors, conversations, traps. I memorized every base's emergency exits, not from fear but habit. Knowing how to leave was power. At 24, I deployed to Syria with a small intel team. We analyzed propaganda, intercepted communications, and crafted counternarratives. It wasn't glamorous, mostly paperwork with stakes. We fought beliefs, fears, and loyalties. My team was tight, 5 people. 1. Caleb Reed from Wyoming, grew up on a ranch. He made a shed joke once, not knowing. I froze. He noticed and never did it again. Instead, he'd save me the last energy bar or sit beside me on transports. Quiet respect, nothing more. Then came Operation Dustvale, a mission to meet village elders about insurgent activity. It was meant to be low risk. We arrived at dusk, the village was too still, no kids, no animals.
I senset it, sie längse like a heldbrit.
Caleb and I paired up to scout. He stopped at a stone house, hearing movement. "Cover me," he said, stepping inside.
A shot rang out, von.
I rushed in. Caleb was down, chest hit, blood pooling. His eyes locked on mine, no words. I pressed the wound, told him to hang on, lied to us both. He was gone before medevac arrived. The shooter, a boy of 13, was trembling behind a wall, clutching a rifle too heavy for him. Someone had told him we were devils. Command took him. I didn't ask what happened.
That night, I sat outside the outpost, boats in the dirt, back to the wall. Like I uset to at home when no one cared if I ate.
Torres found me, lit a cigarette and said, "War's not just out there, it's what you carry back." She was right. Weeks later, on patrol, I saw a girl, maybe 10, chasing a stray dog. She tripped, fell, and everyone laughed. I helped her up, saw bruises on her wrists, the flinch when voices rose. I slipped her an energy bar. She looked at me like I'd given her the world. For the first time in years, I felt solid, not invisible. I mailed Caleb's dog tags to his brother with a note I agonized over but regretted instantly. He sent a thank you card I never opened. Grief wasn't a dialogue. Months later, during a night op, I tore my ankle in a bad fall. The doc called it a severe sprain and said I'd get cozy with crutches. Fieldwork ended. The injury didn't heal right. By year's end, I got a medical discharge. Honorable but unceremonious. I flew home coach, wedged between a snoring businessman and a chatty teen. No one waited at the airport. I limped to a taxi with one bag. That first night, I slept on the floor of a Spokane motel. The bed felt too soft, too fake. The ceiling reminded me of my childhood bedroom's chipped paint. I rented a basement apartment in Boise, musty but private. I worked nights at a 24-hour diner, the kind of place where no one asks questions. Days were for disability forms and freelance gigs. I didn't call my family, they didn't call me. The silence was a gift. At the diner, I started writing during dead shifts, lists, fragments, thoughts about surviving in plain sight. It became essays about silence, about childhoods that hurt under perfect facades. I posted them on a blog called Silent Pulse, under a pseudonym. I expected 10 readers. I got 40,000 in a month. People shared stories of houses that looked fine but felt like prisons, of learning early that crying got you mocked. One post, "The Birthday That Broke Me," about the shed, went viral on veteran forums and trauma groups. I wrote, "They left me in a shed. They thought I'd stay there." A Seattle veterans group emailed, inviting me to speak at a trauma recovery event. I read the email 6 times before agreeing. I bought a $15 thrift blazer and hoped I looked competent. The event was in a community center, mismatched chairs, paper cups. I spoke after a man who'd lost his pension after a dishonorable discharge. When they called my pseudonym, Pulse, I stood.
No Applause, no Bos, perfect. I read my piece, no Humor, just rautrot.
By the shed part, for people were crying quietly. One man nodded fiercely, another whispered truth. Afterward, people shared their own stories: bad parents, cruel birthdays, siblings who laughed at pain. A woman hugged me saying, "You made me feel less alone." That stuck. On the flight home I thought, what if I stop hiding?
I reise echt changing mein Name in Idaho.
3 weeks later, I filed to become Emily Hayes at the Ada County Courthouse. Carter felt like gravel and betrayal. When it was official, I bought a vanilla cupcake, no candles. That week, I saw a listing for a foreclosed cabin in McCall, an hour from Boise. It was my great-aunt's old place, visited once as a kid. I remembered her warm hands and pine-scented porch. The deed showed she'd left it to me before her death. My mother's challenge had failed. The cabin sat empty, tax delinquent. I used my discharge funds and blog donations to buy it. The first step inside smelled of dust and time. The floor groaned, windows were cracked. In a closet, I found a letter to my mother in shaky handwriting, a suicide note from years before my great-aunt's death. It read, "You let him destroy your kids." I tried to speak up. You shut me out.
Protect Emily, or no one will.
I sat on the floor, stunned, then stored the letter in a lockbox with a note, "Roots start here." I ripped out weeds until my hands bled, making the yard mine. The cabin didn't need to be perfect, just lived in. I patched walls, scrubbed floors, opened windows to let it breathe. I hired 2 women from the veterans group, ex-Marines who worked without chatter. We turned a back room into a meeting space with thrift chairs and a woven rug.
I painted von Wall blue for calm.
I called it Hayes Haven, blending my new name with the light I was reclaiming. It wasn't a business, just a space with walls and hope. The first weekend, 10 women came, invited through forums and whispers. They brought backpacks, not luggage. We had stew simmering and a sign, "No cruelty allowed." We sat on second-hand cushions, no forced introductions. I said I wasn't healed, just someone who knew what it was to walk away without a destination. A woman, Lena, had lost her daughter to a vindictive ex. Another, Carla, hadn't seen her family in 7 years. A third, Rose, wore scarves to hide scars and sat against walls. No one demanded stories, they shared when ready. We cooked, planted herbs, hung heavy curtains for those with nightmares. Notes on the bathroom mirror read, "You are enough." On the third night, we held an open mic, not for show, just release. Lena read a jagged poem. Carla hummed a tune that hit like a memory. I spoke unplanned. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them feel better, especially not the ones who broke you. Someone clapped softly, another whispered, "Finally." It wasn't victory, it was breath. I stopped scanning for threats and started checking for mail, bills, flyers, junk. Then came an envelope hand-delivered, my old name in Sophie's sharp handwriting. Inside a letter, "Emily, I don't know if you'll read this. Dad had a stroke, face half paralyzed. Bills are piling up. You're his medical proxy. He never changed it. I know we were cruel. I don't know why anymore. Please help." 2 days later, an email, "He'll die without a better facility. I can't pay.
I'm barely surviving. Please, as your sister."
Attached was a photo, Thomas in a hospital bed, gaunt, tubes in his nose, that smug jaw now crooked. I stared, knowing exactly what I felt and hating its clarity. I filed the email in my lockbox and bought groceries I didn't need. The next day, Lena knocked. Someone's sobbing in the bathroom. We weren't a clinic, just a place to break safely. I made coffee, wiped counters, added names to our retreat list. Another envelope arrived, legal papers confirming I was Thomas's medical proxy. A checkbox asked if I accepted responsibility. I stared, pen in hand, 17 years of silence pressing against my ribs. I didn't check yes or no. I shelved it and watered the herbs outside. The sun was setting, the path clean. A woman sketched on the porch, another folded blankets.
No von kne my Vater mich die if idit noting.
I drove past the shed unplanned, then looped back. It was smaller, sagging further, roof collapsed. The smell was damp, like trapped rain. I stepped over broken boards to the door where I'd stood at 15, blindfolded, sinking into dirt as they laughed. I pulled out a jar with a candle, a lighter, and a scrap of green dress I'd kept. I cleared weeds, set the jar down, lit the candle, and watched it burn. In my old journal, I wrote a letter I'd never send. You thought I'd stay broken. I wrote until the page tore, folded it into the jar with the fabric, blew out the candle, and buried it where weeds met gravel. No marker, just closure. My legs trembled, not weakness but release. I sat in my car, folded over the wheel, sobbing. Raw, messy, real.
Von scream, not loot, just enug.
I wiped my face and breathed free air. At a gas station, I washed up, looked in the mirror and thought, you're lighter now. Back home, I sent 2 emails. One to Sophie, he can come. Just time and address, no name. The other to our Haven medic, asking if we could host someone with mobility issues, speech problems, and a manipulative past. She said, room yes.
Tolerance, no.
Your call. I made it. 3 days later, a van arrived. Thomas Carter, slumped in a wheelchair, neck brace, tubes, eyes caught between shame and defiance. Sophie helped him, playing the dutiful daughter. She scanned the Haven like it might attack. I stepped onto the porch. He froze.
Sophie's voice broke, Emily.
I didn't respond, just opened the door. The hall had photos from retreats, women laughing, gardening, healing.
As ein Ried, you are not hard to laugh. Thomas scanned it like a judge.
Sophie clutched her purse. I offered no comfort. At noon, I addressed the group, 12 women in a circle, Thomas and Sophie in the corner. We have guests who've known me longest but never knew me, I said. This place isn't about revenge. It's about recovery. Recovery starts when you stop pretending the hurt didn't happen. I looked at Thomas. You don't need to apologize. I wouldn't believe it. But you need to know you don't control my story anymore. His mouth twitched. Maybe the stroke, maybe not. Sophie stood, then sat. We just wanted to talk, she said. He needs help. Insurance won't cover rehab.
Jure on the papas.
You already tried guilt, I said. She stopped. Thomas tried. Whatever you think happened. No, I cut in.
You don't rewrite it here. I step it closer, calm. You left me in a shed on my birthday.
Watched me cry through a windshield and laughed. Posted it online. Called it tough love. He didn't deny it. I turned to Sophie. You helped. Laughed.
Laid it live online.
Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I believed her, not because she earned it, but because I didn't need her to. This place, I said, gesturing, is about freedom. I don't owe you anything. Not money, not visits, not closure. Sophie wiped her face. I hugged her, not for her, but because I could. I handed her the denial of responsibility form. He's state care now. They'll call in a week. Thomas grunted. I met his eyes.
You don't die in the home of the girl you left for dead.
The medic wheeled him out. Sophie followed, head down. No one clapped. This wasn't a show. Someone poured coffee.
The haven breathed. I pronet the front penis, soil and sap sharp in the air.
My hands ached through gloves. Honest work. Inside, the retreat group journaled, their energy settling. Lena brought blankets and nodded toward the driveway. Deliveries here. I signed for crates of plants, sage, daisies, thyme. with a note in my handwriting I didn't recall writing. We planted them that evening, Lena, Carla, and I, dirt under our nails. Carla made a sign, "Nothing buried stays." We staked it in the garden where the old shed once stood, torn down months before. A local paper featured Hayes Haven in a story on community healing. I allowed photos, unposed. Inquiries flooded in, 50 from across the Northwest, saying, "I didn't know a place like this existed."
One letter, handwritten, no sender, SAVU in the paper.
Didn't recognize you.
I hope you're not angry forever.
He's fading. I knew it was Sophie. I burned the letter on the porch, sipping tea, watching it curl to ash. We held a small ceremony, tea lights, jars, barefoot in the grass. I said, "We were told we were too much. Turns out, we were just ahead."
A sign by the garden read, "No one left alone."
They touched it like it spoke their truth. I saw Thomas's obituary online. Thomas Carter, 68, survived by 2 daughters.
No service, no photo, just allein. I starret, feeling nothing, not relief, not grief, just space.
I burned the hospital papers in the fireplace, quick and quiet. Days later, I wrote at the kitchen table. Not a blog but something rawer. About being 15, blindfolded. About silence that sharpens into strength. About war, home, and shame that wears your name. About a shed and a garden and women who helped me grow past both. The final line came unbidden, "I'm not better than them. I'm free." It became a book, not a bestseller but passed among survivors, slipped into backpacks, shared between estranged siblings. We planted more sage that spring, built a bench from shed wood.
A plaque read, "We don't return to Tose who buried us."
We grow gardens where they left us. Hayes Haven grew, a second house, accessible, called the West Wing despite facing north. We laughed at that.
I woke the pass at dawn, tea in hand, baref oat.
New guests ask, "Is this for people like me?" I say, "Especially you," and hold the door. Revenge never drew me, peace did. It looks like women sharing soup, dirt-stained hands, and silence that doesn't hurt. He's gone. The damage lingers, but I'm here, rooted.
The girl in the green dress isn't waiting. She's not broken.
She's free. If this resonates, if you've carried family scars or dreamed of quiet justice, you're not alone. Subscribe for more stories of pain turned to power.